Dirty, dirty hooker.
30
Fuck you doing
mil,
in
yeah.
town?
I'm running back. Some guild member said, come quick. There's a guy selling Gorilla song for 30 mil. I'm like, alright.
Well, hold on, I'm fucking lagging. Just fucking.
parade. The color grids and all invade us. There he goes again. Take me to the edge again. All I got is a dirty trick. Chasing down the wolves to save ya.
This is a mainly unrecognisable introduction to this song, which... Oh, you have one of those beards! You're not any better, are you? But you look like any better. Oh, it's one of those beards. Is it real? I have to touch it.
着枯叶里苏醒，是夜莺凄凉的叹息，解开咒语。遗忘的剑被谁封印，追随着笑声和马蹄。这更伟大的生命，它是为了歌颂。交替，我穿越过几个世纪，生是为了证明爱存在的痕迹，或燃烧后更伟大的生命。
It's a lovely weekend afternoon, and your friends invite you to go to the beach. Little do you know of the hidden dangers lurking in those sandy dunes. As you glide through that crystal clear water, you cut your foot on an old rusted can someone threw away. You wash out the wound with seawater and get back to having fun, because it's just a small cut. And what's the worst that could happen? Today's video will cover a few medical case studies of ER patients exhibiting strange symptoms, but all have a shared eventual diagnosis. We will also be covering it on a common misconception, and as always, we recommend speaking with your doctor if you have any health concerns. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. A 78-year-old man living in Mexico turned up at the ER complaining of jaw pain he had been experiencing for a few days. He had difficulty opening his mouth and also experienced dysphonia, a disorder where muscle spasms impede regular speech. He had a mildly distended but non-tender stomach region, and upon further inspection, a healing wound about 5 centimeters long and 2 centimeters wide. The man said that he had received it at work 2 weeks prior when he fell off a tractor and into muddy water. He also admitted, after doctors inquired, that he had not received his immunizations in recent history, nor could he recall receiving them as a child. He did, however, receive topical medication for his injury from a local medical practitioner at the moment of the injury. On his 4th day in the hospital, he suffered from a severe apnea which closed his airway, and a cardiac arrest shortly after. He was then given a tracheotomy, which is a fancy word for poking a hole under someone's vocal cords so they can breathe through a tube. And after 3 weeks on a cocktail of antibiotics, he was released from the hospital. A 48-year-old man arrived at the ER 5 days after receiving a cut to his foot from a grinding wheel. He said he was experiencing sensitivity to light, muscle contractures, and back pain. Shortly after, he began to experience seizures and then suffered a cardiac arrest. Doctors resuscitated him, gave him some anticonvulsants, and learned that he had not been immunized in the last decade. He was then put under anesthesia before surgeons removed contaminated tissue, administered antibiotics, and discharged him shortly thereafter. A 77-year-old woman went into the ER after a few days of experiencing jaw tightness and lesions in her mouth. She was found to have acute oral candidiasis, the overgrowth of fungus on the tongue and inside the mouth. She was treated and sent home. 2 days later, she returned after suffering a number of seizures, insisting that she did not receive any injuries before experiencing symptoms, and that she had received all her vaccinations as a child. She was then treated for depression and somatization, which is a fancy word for intense physical distress caused by emotional stressors. After 2 weeks in the hospital, she was finally diagnosed properly and given antibiotics, but it was too late. After 24 days in the hospital, she had suffered massive brain damage, pneumonia, cardiac arrest followed by more seizures, her lungs filling up with liquid, and sepsis, which led to her untimely demise. Here we have 3 different cases with different circumstances. One man cut his arm following injuries from a grinding wheel, and the last presented with a case of oral thrush. What do all 3 of these patients have in common? Well, besides suffering from cardiac arrest, they were all eventually diagnosed with tetanus. Once diagnosed, each patient was given antibiotics. However, only 2 of 3 cases survived. It's likely that you've heard that if you cut yourself on a rusty nail, you're in danger of contracting tetanus. None of our cases involved a rusty nail, but 2 of them received an injury from some sort of metal, so rust could be present. But I have a feeling there's more to this. Tetanus, usually referred to as lockjaw, is a bacterial infection characterized by symptoms of muscle spasms, difficulty swallowing and speaking, strong convulsions triggered by phenomena as minor as talking, breathing, or bright light, and trismus, which is also referred to as lockjaw.
Alright, hold up. Lockjaw is also known as tetanus, but lockjaw is also known as trismus. So then is tetanus also known as trismus? Is trismus the same thing as tetanus? Your explanations are decaf level unsatisfying.
Oh, snap.
Whoa there, big guy. I think you need to simmer down. Trismus is just when someone can't open their jaw all the way.
Now, what's worse is that the muscle spasms from the tetanus infection can lead to airway blockages, which can trigger cardiac arrest.
Step on a crack and break your mother's back. More like step on a nail and then your organs fail.
Crude, but correct. Tetanus is caused by the bacteria Clostridium tetani, or C. tetani, which is frequently found in soil, dust, and animal feces. The bacteria isn't dangerous while in the aforementioned substances because it can only grow in oxygen-deprived environments. Unfortunately for us, the inside of a healing wound is an oxygen-deprived environment. Contracting tetanus is most often caused by infections of saliva or feces, puncture wounds, crushing injuries, and burns, up until the Second World War.
Oh, hey, whoa. I think you mean the Second World Demonetization.
Of course. Up until the Second World Demonetization, soldiers would commonly suffer from severe tetanus infections due to bayonet and bullet wounds left untreated or uncleaned. The C. tetani bacteria inoculates in an open wound and release tetanospasm toxins, which attack motor neurons and inhibit the release of the neurotransmitters GABA and glycine, which you'll remember if you watched our video on sleep paralysis.
And if you haven't, go watch it. Click on it after this video's done. Unless you're a coward and scared of a few itty-bitty sleep demons.
As I was saying, GABA and glycine control muscle inhibition. When they're blocked, cells cannot mitigate motor functions in response to stimuli, which can lead to the uncontrollable spasms associated with the infection. The incubation period for the C. tetani bacteria is anywhere from 1 to 60 days, though on average symptoms begin appearing from 7 to 10 days. Once the tetanospasm toxins reach the brainstem, autonomic dysfunction begins, which throws off the brain's ability to control the heart, the pupils, intestines, sweat glands, and bladder, among other things. System. In addition to that, the spasms from the tetanus toxin can be so violent you could even break your own back from the convulsions.
Oh, is it like when Peter Parker gets his superpowers and suddenly he's too strong for his own good? Except, instead of accidentally breaking his own glasses when he picks them up, the muscles in his back convulse so hard that they break his spine?
Yes, exactly.
And he ends up bending like a handful of uncooked spaghetti? Or like Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man issue 121.
Oh, that's not good. The likelihood that tetanus will get that bad is about 10%, even among those who are vaccinated. The rate is even higher in those unvaccinated, at 20 to 45%.
10% is still way higher than I want, bro. The weather forecast today said there was only gonna be a 10% chance of slight drizzle today.
The good news is, despite there being long-term motor and neuropsychiatric complications in survivors, most make full recoveries. According to the American Center for Disease Control, tetanus is a medical emergency. If you believe that you have tetanus, you should get to the hospital as quickly as possible. The most common treatment for tetanus requires the administration of human tetanus immune globulin, or TIG, which is a mixture of donated human blood containing tetanus antibodies. Essentially, it's a blast of proteins that attack C. tetani before it is able to release its neurotoxins. The idea that a rusty nail gives you tetanus is misleading, insofar as it leads one to believe that rust is the culprit, though I still wouldn't recommend ignoring it. The long and short of it is that any open wound in contact with dirt is liable to be infected by C. tetani. You can 100% get tetanus from a rusty nail, but rust is not the reason one contracts tetanus. It's a catalyst.
Oh, I love cat lists. Let's do one now. Calico, Siamese,
He said
Persian,
catalyst, as in a
Bengal,
person or thing that facilitates an
Sphinx,
event. Bruce saying that the nail is just
Siberian,
making it easier for the bacteria to
Bombay,
infect you. It doesn't actually make you
Coon,
sick on its own.
American
Exactly.
Girl, Havana Brown.
Rust is just iron oxide, the chemical combination of iron and oxygen, which is completely harmless to humans. We use it as food coloring, paint, and it even exists in our red blood cells. Rust is nothing to fear. But like we talked about earlier, tetanus is a bacterial infection. So the real threat is on a much smaller scale than a stray nail. Rust is, however, a likely indicator that a nail has cultures of bacteria already living on it. A rusty nail is also probably less sanitary than a fresh nail as well. The biggest worry is that the rust provides small nooks and crannies for dirt to collect, so it's easy for a puncture wound from a rusty nail to become infected. What do you think of when I say 4th of July? Probably hot dogs, baseball, and inappropriate uses for an American flag. But what if I told you that tetanus tetanus used to be as patriotic as Budweiser and barbecues. The C. tetani bacteria is so malevolent that the United States had to come up with a term to refer to tetanus infections from firework displays during 4th of July celebrations: patriotic tetanus. Indeed, patriotic tetanus was so prevalent in the former half of the 20th century that from 1901 to 1910, 56 people on average died per year from firework-related tetanus infections on the 4th of July. The Journal of the American Medical Association underwent a massive targeted education campaign that argued that American lawmakers refusing to regulate the fireworks used on the 4th of July celebrations were, at best, criminally negligent in the deaths that occurred in their cities. The New York Tribune recorded the number of deaths per year and determined that half the lives lost in the 4th of July accidents were women and children, and argued for the conviction and hanging of those they called murderers, in order to cure one of the worst of the many evils of Independence Day, and stop the children from slaughtering themselves. To this day, Chicago still has a citywide ban on fireworks of any kind. One even cared so much about the ban to write a poem in the Chicago Day book entitled, "We'll Have Both of Our Eyes After the 4th of July." It reads, "Nix on the lockjaw, nix on the maim. Loud noise explosives are out of the game. 4th of July scares have all been excused. You'll just have to yell if you're over-enthused." Though it wasn't all bad, as these deaths forced the American Medical Association to expedite the development of an antitoxin, which drastically reduced tetanus-related deaths during World Demonetization I. The long and short of it is that tetanus is no joke. If you find yourself with an injury that has been contaminated with soil or other substances that C. tetani can be found in, monitor your injury and get to the hospital immediately if you begin to experience symptoms. Prevention is probably the better option though. We don't want to tell anyone what they should do with their bodies. However, both the Centers for Disease Control and Health Canada recommend a combination of vaccines including diphtheria, tetanus, and whooping cough, which they say can lessen or eliminate all symptoms. Both organizations also recommend being vaccinated every 10 years or so. The world is full of many dangerous diseases and afflictions, and there are plenty of different treatments that different groups recommend. It's good to be skeptical about what you're putting in your body. The most important thing is that we make these decisions from an informed position, and that we know how to find reputable sources. The rust on an old nail isn't the thing that's giving you tetanus. You're in danger of it no matter which nail you step on. Just be careful, know your body, and don't get nailed by tetanus.
Ugh. Listening to your jokes is really backbreaking, huh? Cause, you know, the spasms can break your spine.
Grill, that's not funny. People died.
Screw you hypocrites, I'm gonna go look at some cats.
Is someone feline catty today?
Scottish Fold, Munchkin, Tiger, Lycoy, Ragdoll, Bowman, Selkirk Rex, Ragamuffin, Nebelong, Van, Minskin, Corette, Laperm, Pixie Bob.
Guess what resolution this game's running at? 720p? Think again. 480p? Nope, still too high. It is running at just 240p. That's the setting you avoid on YouTube because it sucks too much to use. Yet here, it results in a surprisingly coherent image, considering it's running at just 427 by 240 pixels, then using the new DLSS Ultra Performance mode to try and stretch that up to full 720p. I think you'll agree agree, it doesn't quite manage it. The result is fuzzy, and worse than that, checkerboarded. Distant stuff like those towers shimmer and fizz, with there not being quite enough information for DLSS to produce a stable image from. But remember, I'm gaming at just 427 by 240 pixels. My frame rates are insane. Upping the resolution to 1080p improves things. Now, DLSS Super Performance Mode is running at 640 by 360, or roughly the resolution used by some Nintendo 64 games. I think you'll agree, it doesn't pass as proper 1080p, nor does it look like a Nintendo 64 game. But it's crazy to think that it's running on a resolution lower than PC gamers were using in the 90s. Now the game's at 1440p, which DLSS runs at 853 by 480. It's still imperfect, but we're approaching acceptable quality now, albeit with a bit more fuzz and artifacts than normal. And the frame rates will still be stupidly high. Finally, reaching 4K, the game's now running at 1280 by 720. On a 4K screen, I can still tell that it isn't quite 4K, but it's reaching the point where I just don't care. Because in motion, things are now moving about so I can't study the pixels, and if I stop, then the DLSS quickly gathers enough information about the image to fill in the gaps. What I'm using here is the brand new DLSS 2.1 feature known as Ultra Performance Mode, and it's ridiculous. Its official use is to enable 8K gaming, because even the most powerful GeForce 1390 card doesn't have enough raw performance to manage this in modern titles, so instead relies on DLSS Ultra Performance to run the game at 1440p, then to use the magic of upscaling to get it the rest of the way. You might say that's cheating, and I agree it is, but if you can't tell the difference on an 8K screen, so what? Plus, you'll actually be getting playable frame rates, which you might kind of want. I can tell you already, if you're going to game at 8K, DLSS is your only real option right now. To fill you in, DLSS is about rendering a game at a lower resolution, then using clever upscaling trickery to try and return it to the original resolution again. The benefits to this approach are numerous. If sensibly configured, the result can still look better better than the native image, and because it's running at a lower resolution, it runs much faster than if DLSS wasn't being used. And on top of that, it applies beautiful anti-aliasing to the image, because why not? So it's kind of like magic. You get better image quality and frame rates when it's enabled. It's redefined how we see resolutions, quite literally blurring the boundaries that used to separate them. And it isn't going away. Current consoles already use smart upscaling to hit 4K resolutions, and the next generation will rely on it more than ever. There are, of course, downsides to upscaling, but they're so vastly outweighed by the benefits that nobody cares. Up until now, DLSS has come in several modes like quality and performance. Quality looks better than native resolution, and performance is roughly on par with it, despite only rendering at 1/4 of the resolution. But in this video I'm using the new Ultra Performance setting, which goes much further still, rendering at just 1/9 of the resolution. Even with all of the fancy trickery in the world, surely there's no way it can make 9 pixels from just 1. There's no way the resulting image can possibly look as good as the native resolution could. And as you've seen already, it doesn't quite manage it. It isn't up to native quality. It ends up looking like a really aggressive form of FXAA, but with noticeable checkerboarding around the edges of things. And you'll want motion blur on to disguise these artifacts, which only get worse when the game's in motion. But still, for the base resolution it's using, it punches well above its weight. If we compare native 720p with 720p DLSS upscale to 4K, you can see how much more information it appears to add to the image. It does come at a bit of a performance penalty, but when it's rendering at such a low resolution in the first place, you'll hardly care. In fact, the higher the frame rate, the faster it can fill in the gaps. So when I'm gaming on a GeForce 3080 at a resolution this low, it takes just a fraction of a second for it to do a reasonable job of imitating a higher resolution than the one it's currently running at. It's only if I capture the first rendered frame, like I have in this example, that you can see how few initial pixels it's got to work with. But moving on just a few frames, you can see how much extra detail it has applied to the image. This isn't magic, but it's the next best thing, using a combination of upscaling, numerous samples from a subpixel level, and motion vectors. What if you don't want DLSS to upscale at all, but simply to act as anti-aliasing? You can do this by getting DLSS to render at your monitor's resolution and then to upscale to something greater. And I can tell you now, this looks great, with all of the improvements being condensed down into a really robust anti-aliasing solution. In fact, the anti-aliasing it produces is like so good, I feel it does away with the need for MSAA or even super sampling almost entirely. This is actually how DLSS was first presented to us, but then by release Nvidia had changed direction, instead only using DLSS at sub-native resolutions so as to improve performance. But if you have the computing power to spare, this option is available to you, and I really suggest you check it out to see for yourself because it makes you realise the compromises and limitations other methods of anti-aliasing have had in comparison. The frame rate will drop. Without DLSS ran at 74 FPS average, but that resolution upscale to 4K dropped it to 64 FPS, and upscale to you might as well FPS average. But that resolution upscale to 4K dropped it to 64 FPS, and upscale to 8K used at low resolutions. Nvidia doesn't want everybody gaming at 240p being all like, ooh, DLSS makes everything look blocky. But so what? Running at such a low resolution really reveals the workings of the technology, which I think is cool. There's a visible halo of truth behind DLSS. Nintendo Switch's successor being able to use this. When in portable mode, the Switch currently just drops to a lower resolution because there's not so much power to render along with the ultra performance mode, so I expect that it's one of the intended uses for this new setting. In fact, why stop here? Why not have a super performance setting that renders at just 1/16 the resolution? Sure, it would look like crap, but I'd do a video about it, no questions asked. Why not have a potato mode that upscales from just a single pixel? relying on the past 1000 frames to produce an image of some kind from. I'd do a video about that too. As fun as it's been to abuse this feature in ways it was never intended to be used, I might as well end the video by using it properly, that is, to run games at 8K. I've already done a video testing the GeForce 3080 at 8K. Spoiler alert, it didn't do so well. But then neither does the 3090, so please stop saying it's because the 3080 has just 10GB of VRAM. 8K is just a crazily difficult thing to power at the moment. But perhaps even bother testing control at 8K without DLSS because you know it's not going to manage it. So here are the benchmark results that I did manage to get. Death Stranding at 8K with DLSS quality setting averaged 40 FPS. Performance averaged 54, and the new ultra performance setting boosted that to 70 FPS on average, which put it well within the realm
Pass, jogando de guarda, a alabarda, né, na mão. Resolveu se esconder ali que as flechadas dessa caçadora... Cima da caçadora! Caçadora tão complicado. Foi pra cima, a primeira flechada já foi 50% de HP. Ela colhe, olha o hit kill em cima da caçadora, meu amigo. As primeiras flechadas ali em cima da Guardian foram doloridas, mas ela manteve a super armadura, foi pra cima, jogou o shift botão esquerdo e o Caio foi explodido. Hit kill no menino. Que é isso, meu amigo? 1-0 pra Guardian. Desumilde. Vamos lá, começando o segundo round. Tô aqui agora com o Caio. Parece que temos um buff puxado. O Caio ali começa o massacre, vai explodir! A Guardian concentrou a skill, agora foi a vez da caçadora! A vingança é plena, meus amigos! A caçadora puxou o shift botão esquerdo e foi explodida em cima da super armadura antes de soltar a skill! Mas tá uma maravilha isso aqui! Cê tá doido? Partida empatada, 1-1! Tá humilde esses malucos, cê tá doido? A Guardian vai pra cima. Puxou ali a Fênix. A caçadora vai só se reposicionando de boa. A Guardian vai pra cima de novo. Temos a flechada. Foi pro chão. Acho que não levanta mais. Explodido está. Mais um round para o Caio. Um dano absurdo da caçadora. Meu Deus. A Guardian vacilou. Tomou uma flechada no olho. Já caiu ali com 50% de HP. E foi explodida em seguida. Mais um round para a caçadora. 2-1. Vamos lá, começando mais um round. Quarto agora. Por enquanto a caçadora vai levando a melhor. Vamos ver aqui a Guardian o que ela vai aprontar. Flechadinha passou ali. A caçadora já deixou a marca dela. A Guardian já... Ela puxa a Fênix, bateu de cara ali no degrau. Acho que ela achou que ia conseguir subir o degrau na Fênix. Não conseguiu. O Caio começa a botar pressão. A Guardian vai pra cima. Já tomou 50% de dano. Ela joga a Fênix de novo. A caçadora vai tentando se afastar ali, já tomou bastante dano. A Guardian vai pra cima, ele com 3%. A caçadora é forçada a utilizar o escape, a Guardian conseguiu colocar a pressão ali que precisava, tá com a primeira vantagem agora. Foi pra cima, com pra frente F. A caçadora fica presa ali, a caçadora tem uns pulos ali. Não conseguiu conectar agora o shift, botão esquerdo. Ela vai pra cima de novo. O Caio continua botando pressão, vai jogando os pulinhos ali. O pulo da... Toma, foi pro chão, já era. Não adianta mais. Aquele abraço. A caçadora tá com uns pulos cintilantes agora, né? Dá uns pulos majestosos e longos. Conseguiu escapar ali 2 vezes do engage com seus pulos. Olha esses pulos saltitantes, mirabolantes. O knockdown veio. O dano é um absurdo. Já era. 3-1 para a caçadora. Sucessão.
Got a head full of spiders and a heart that isn't healed. cigarettes and bullet holes. One more to the chest till I'm alone. Nothing gets me any higher, and nothing ever will. Tried to stay sober, tried to stay clean. Wake me when it's over, like a bad dream. Mama doesn't call, sister never writes. Bet you they would laugh if I called to say goodbye. No one's gonna worry and notice when I'm gone. No, they won't know I'm missing till they pull me out the mystic. Tell the preacher not to pray. There's no angels where I go. Only pieces that are broken, scattered dreams across the floor. I'm home. Tried to stay sober, tried to stay clean. Wake me when it's over, like a bad dream. Mama doesn't call, sister never writes. Bet you they would laugh if I called to say goodbye. No one's gonna worry and notice when I'm gone. No, they won't know I'm missing till they pull me out the mystic. Tried to stay sober, tried to stay clean. Wake me when it's over, like a bad dream. Mama doesn't call, sister never writes. Bet you they would laugh if I called to say goodbye. No one's gonna worry and notice when I'm gone. No, they won't know I'm missing till they pull me out the mystic. Tell the preacher not to pray. There's no angels where I go. Only pieces that are broken, scattered dreams across the floor. I'm home. Tried to stay sober, tried to stay clean. Wake me when it's over, like a bad dream. Mama doesn't call, sister never writes. Bet you they would laugh if I called to say goodbye. No one's gonna worry and notice when I'm gone. No, they won't know I'm missing till they pull me out the mystic. Tried to stay sober, tried to stay clean. Wake me when it's over, like a bad dream. Mama doesn't call,
Address is to a town called Sacrament Valley, about 4 hours from here.
That's where we need to go.
Flood, fire, cremation. Those are images that have never been on the tape before. You know, primitive cultures believe that the only way to free souls is to burn the body. Primitive cultures believe that the only way to free souls
There's something to be said. Don't you think it's funny that I'm giving you the time when you just left me dead? There's something to be said. Honestly, you're kinda lucky that I'm giving you a shot after the things you did. And I really think it's lovely now that you really wanna love me. But you know I'm not that type. I think we burnt that bridge. I don't wanna do this any more than you. But since you left that night, I don't care what you do.
Tell me it's make believe. I just take it back. You know time crawls on when you're waiting for the song to start, so dance alone to the beat of your heart. Hey, young blood, doesn't it feel like our time is running out? I'm gonna change you like a remix, then I'll raise you like a phoenix. Wearing a vintage misery. No, I think it looked a little better on me. I'm gonna change you like a remix, then I'll raise you like a phoenix. Bring home the boys and scrap metal the tanks. Get hitched, make a career out of robbing banks. Because the world is just a teller and we are wearing black masks. You broke our spirits as a note we pass. We can take the world back from a heart attack. One maniac at a time, we will take it back. You know time crawls on when you're waiting for the song to start, so dance alone to the beat of your heart. Hey, young blood, doesn't it feel like our time is running out? I'm gonna change you like a remix, then I'll raise you like a phoenix. Wearing a vintage misery. No, I think it looked a little better on me. I'm gonna change you like a remix, then I'll raise you like a phoenix. Put on your war paint. The war is won before it's begun. Release the dove, surrender love. The war is won before it's begun. Release the dove, surrender love. The war is won before it's begun. Release the dove, surrender love. The war is won before it's begun. Release the dove, surrender love. Hey, young blood, doesn't it feel like our time is running out? I'm gonna change you like a remix, then I'll raise you like a phoenix. Wearing a vintage misery. No, I think it looked a little better on me. I'm gonna change you like a remix, then I'll raise you like a phoenix. Hey, young blood, doesn't it feel like our time is running out? I'm gonna change you like a remix, then I'll raise you like a phoenix. Put on your war paint. Hey, young blood, doesn't it feel like our time is running out? I'm gonna change you like a remix, then I'll raise you like a phoenix. Wearing a vintage misery. No, I think it looked a little better.
Oh my god, he hurts. There's two of them.
I know sometimes I let my pride get the best of me, thinking we got telepathy, working on it every day, but I don't know what's next for me. Wish I could have everything, but nothing in this life is free. Gotta dig my heels in and think about what's best for me. I know you have your doubts and trust me, I got them too. I know it's getting hard, but babe, I believe in you. We're gonna make a fall, I promise that's what we'll do. I'm getting back on track, I promise, babe, you will too. Getting back on track.
Oh my god!
Are you on count two?
That was so calculated.
All these thoughts keep me up at night. Yeah, I can't think straight, need the light. I need to breathe, get me up and out of the sheets, onto my feet. Another cup of coffee and me, that's what I need. My eyes puffy, I can't see. I'm too tired to function, but too lost to sleep. Hey, I think I need to be on something medication. I think I need to figure out the segregation. I think I needed just a better education to understand a world that's so complicated. Intoxicated, every night faded, just so I can sleep thinking that it's hated. I feel hated, I feel hatred. I'm lost deep in my mind that I've created. I have dreams where my life is devastated. Feel so real that I wake up shaking. Need thicker skin cause this life is no haven. Nod your head if you get what I'm saying. All these thoughts keep me up at night. Yeah, what am I doing? Did I do it right? Yeah, all these thoughts keep me up at night. Yeah, I can't think straight, need the light. Yo, all these thoughts keep me up at night. Yeah, what am I doing? Did I do it right? Yeah, all these thoughts keep me up at night. Yeah, I can't think straight, need the light. I don't really think I understand this world now. Got my head spinning round in a circle. Everybody lacks what they need internal, so they compensate with everything external. Not trying to throw shade, no way. I'm just trying to find a meaning of life, hey. There's happiness if you try to live the right way. Forget about what others have and live your life, hey. Be aware of who you are, what you're good at. Take a step forward, see where your foot's at. Stand tall, stand proud, talk loud. Every word out your mouth has purpose now. You just gotta get rid of the bad thoughts. Hating others cause you know that they gotta lie. Forget that though, you got plenty, you're alive in this life. You got time, go get it. All these thoughts keep me up at night. Yeah, what am I doing? Did I do it right? Yeah, all these thoughts keep me up at night. Yeah, I can't think straight, need the light. Oh, all these thoughts keep me up at night. Yeah, what am I doing? Did I do it right? Yeah, all these thoughts keep me up at night. Yeah, I can't think straight, need the light. Oh.
Actually, just lay the last night everywhere.